With She-Hulk premiering the other week and Black Panther Wakanda Forever set to come out in November of this year, then Marvel's Phase 4 will eventually be coming to a close. And oh my god, hasn't it been a bumpy ride? For starters, we had COVID, that just pushed everything back for miles and miles, and stuff's getting delayed, filming was getting cut, stuff was getting changed last minute, and stuff like that, and it just created delays, and we went through a fair few time of no Marvel content, what hasn't really happened since pre-2008 when the first Iron Man came out. Then second thing with that was we had a lot of stuff be uncertain. We had Spider-Man maybe leaving the MCU, maybe he's not. That ended up being nothing in the end. But the main number one thing, what we've really noticed over this most recent phase, is the decline in VFX. Now before I go into talking about the VFX and everything, I do just want to say that I still quite like the VFX. Obviously they're not as good as they used to be, they have declined, but it's still really impressive what all the VFX artists have done, and it's miles better than anything I could do. So don't say, this isn't me trying to be cynical and saying they're terrible at their jobs and stuff, and as I explain later, it's not so much their own faults to the reason why they're not as good as they used to be. But with all that put aside, let's get to it. So the first thing we got to do is kind of just look back and see when was the first sort of time where the VFX kind of started. A lot of people say it was Black Widow, and I do kind of understand that, but I didn't really see that in cinemas. For me, it was the first time I really saw it in a cinema and I noticed it. But I kind of ignored it just because how big the film was with Spider-Man No Way Home. And now that I've rewatched it and stuff like that, and obviously it's getting re-released in cinemas in the near future, I have noticed that both Andrew and Toby's models, they weren't the best looking. A lot of the other stuff was great. Obviously the Iron Spider suit was a little bit off, but I think that's just kind of normal, to be fair. I feel like it's always been a little bit off in my opinion, but it still looked really good, the reflections were good, stuff like that. But just something about Toby and Andrew's full CGI suits, they looked very pasted from a game, if that makes sense. Like, even with the games now, like the Avengers game, the Spider-Man game, stuff like that, they do look very realistic, Last of Us, whatever. Just, you can still tell, you know, it adds like this uncanny valley sort of vibe to it. And I don't know if it's from shadows or lighting, I don't know that enough to tell myself, but I just kind of noticed that. These issues have carried on throughout like multiple parts. A majority of these issues have all been within this first phase of Marvel. Obviously there were bad CGI back in the early phases, but they were older films, they were new, they would have to learn what to do. But when we got to the point where you have like Infinity Wars levels of effects, or really even Endgame, the Endgame Quantum Realm suits, fully CGI, look amazing, look real. However, they just don't compare that to the first She-Hulk trailer. Fair enough, yeah, I get she has changed how she looks, I do get that, but still not exactly as good as Smart Hulk looked. And also they tried to use the new Mandalorian technology. I say Mandalorian technology, it was the screen, what's called what was used in Mandalorian and a bunch of the other Star Wars Disney Plus shows in Thor Love and Thunder, aka Thor the 4-4. They had a huge issue with that, the colour grading seemed off a bit. The background just didn't seem the same, like it felt like it was more in front of a screen than when you watched the Mandalorian episodes of it. And I feel like that caused a lot of problems. This is the bit that's really funny. All of these ones I've just mentioned, so all of Marvel Phase 4, any show, film you can think of all of them, think how many of them there were. You know, No Way Home, Doctor Strange 2, Thor 4, the fourth Thor. In fact, you're getting the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, all of that stuff. She-Hulk, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, all of those shows and films, they've all been done by the same people. That's right, Marvel have decided, instead of doing 2, at most 3 films per year, like they were doing in Phase 2 and Phase 3, we're going to jump to 5 or 6, but are we going to compensate the fact that we don't have enough VFX artists and enough studios to do third-party stuff for us to work around and get more people? You'd think they would, but they didn't. So this is the problem. So this has led to people who've worked for Marvel, who are VFX artists, leaving and saying how they were stressed, they've been overworked, they've been pushing with deadlines, they've had to cut corners. A lot of the stuff now makes sense why you are getting She-Hulk looking the way she did in the first trailer. Or the green screen not being the best, because yeah, they don't have time to color grade properly. You think they would, but they don't, because they have bigger things what they have to get right, what they know they'll get attacked so much more for if they don't get it right. Maybe not with the She-Hulk one, I do kind of understand you think that'd be a top priority one, but if you're working on Thor Love and Thunder at the exact same time, and the next Guardians film, and Moon Knight, and all of that. There's bits you have to try to get right. And there's two other ways Marvel can fix this. One, the one I reckon they'll just hire some more VFX artists. They'll get and they'll double, triple, however many they need, well, relative to their cost, stuff like that, until people kind of start going, oh yeah, these are really good visuals again. And that's probably how they're going to do it. Second option, I know they're not going to do it. I would love for them to do it because I think they should do it, but they ain't going to do it, let's be honest. And I think they should just chill. This new multiverse saga, what was only announced at Comic-Con quite recently, they said it's going to end in 2025. The last saga took 11 years, and this one's getting 5, basically, by the time they worked out what they wanted to do, because they didn't know what they wanted to do with it. Black Widow had nothing to do with it. WandaVision was the start of it, and what was that? So what, even if you say 2019, that's what, 6 years? That's like half the time of the last saga. Just don't push out content so quickly. Just do it at a nice slow pace. Let us enjoy the films. Let us savor this film for the next 3 months and go, oh, I can't wait for 6 months time when we got this next film. Or, oh look, we got oh no way, we have 2 shows this year? That's amazing. Don't go, oh yeah, that's right, we've watched Miss Marvel. Well, we've got 4 next week. Oh, and then 2 months later we got She-Hulk.